You open the app without thinking about it, the way you always do. Same balance check, same half-second glance, same mental note to move on with your day. Except this time, you don't move on, because the number sitting there is different. Not dramatically different, not life-changing on paper, just 5 digits where there used to be 4. $10,000. You do the math without meaning to. How long it took, what you skipped to get here, and for a second, something shifts. Quiet, almost embarrassing, like you're not supposed to feel proud of a number this small. But here's the thing nobody tells you about this exact moment. It's not small at all, not in the way that matters. Something changes right here. Not your lifestyle, not your bank statement's font size, something else entirely. $10,000 gets dismissed constantly. Scroll through enough finance content and you'll see why. Everything is built around the big numbers, the million-dollar milestone, the how the top 1% think videos, the 7-figure exit stories. Compared to all of that, 10,000 feels almost embarrassing to talk about, like it doesn't belong in the same conversation. That's exactly the mistake most people make, because $1 million as a topic is aspirational, but it's also distant, abstract, something that happens to other people, in other tax brackets, in other lives. $10,000 is different. It's reachable. It's the number sitting 1, 2, maybe 3 years away from almost anyone reading a bank statement right now. And reachable numbers do something distant numbers can't. They actually change behavior. Here's what nobody tells you. The jump from 0 to 10,000 is in some ways harder than the jump from 10,000 to 100,000. There's no momentum yet, no compounding working in your favor, no proof yet that any of this actually works. You're building the entire foundation from nothing, one deposit at a time, with zero evidence it'll pay off. Which is exactly why crossing this line matters more than people assume. It's not the amount, it's what crossing it proves, about discipline, about follow-through, about whether the habit is real or just a phase. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why this specific number quietly reshapes more than your bank balance. The first place this shift shows up isn't in your life, it's in your app. Cross $10,000 and the same banking app that used to just show you a balance starts doing something different. A notification appears, suggesting a high-yield savings account you never qualified for before. A recommended for you tile shows up, nudging you toward an investment product. The algorithm, quietly and without asking, has decided you're a different kind of customer than you were a few months ago. It's not personal. It's not because someone at the bank suddenly likes you more. It's math. Financial institutions are built to identify who's worth retaining, and a growing balance is the clearest signal they have. Below a certain threshold, you're a cost center, someone whose account barely covers the expense of maintaining it. Above it, you become worth competing for. This is where robo-advisors start appearing in your searches differently, where a free portfolio review offer shows up in your inbox for the first time, where the fine print on account fees suddenly includes phrases like waived for balances over, and you realize, almost by accident, that you now qualify. None of this happened because you did anything dramatic. You didn't call anyone. You didn't apply for anything special. You just kept depositing, kept avoiding the urge to spend what accumulated, and crossed an invisible line that institutions had been watching for the whole time. It's a strange kind of validation, quiet, automated, and slightly impersonal. The system doesn't know your name. It doesn't know your story. It just knows the number, and the number is enough to change how you're treated by every algorithm attached to your finances. But institutions aren't the only ones paying attention. People are too, and their reaction to this same threshold is nothing like an app notification. It's louder, it's messier, and it starts a lot closer to home than a banking dashboard. Institutions notice through algorithms. People notice through instinct, and somehow they always seem to sense it before you've said a single word. It starts small. A sibling who never asked about your finances suddenly wants to know how you've been saving. Not in a competitive way, not yet. More curious, almost testing the water. A friend brings up a business idea over coffee, phrased casually, but timed suspiciously close to a conversation where you mentioned paying off a credit card early. None of this is an accident. People read financial confidence the way they read body language, subconsciously, and usually accurately. Family dynamics shift first, because family tends to know your history best. They remember the version of you who used to ask for a little help covering rent, or who avoided splitting the bill at dinner because the timing wasn't right that month. So when that version of you starts sounding steadier, turning down a loan request instead of scrambling to find the money, or casually mentioning a savings goal instead of an overdraft fee, it registers. Sometimes as pride, sometimes quietly as comparison. Friends notice differently. It's less about money directly and more about confidence. You stop hesitating before saying no to unnecessary spending. You stop performing an apologetic tone when you skip a plan to save instead. That shift in tone gets picked up, even when nobody names what caused it. People don't need to see your bank statement to notice you've stopped negotiating with your own anxiety about money. Here's the strange part. None of this is visible. $10,000 sitting in an account doesn't show up in your outfit, your apartment, or your car. And yet the confidence that number quietly produces becomes the most visible thing about you. It's not the money people are reacting to. It's the settledness behind your decisions. The absence of that specific, familiar anxiety that used to show up every time money came up in conversation. This is where the gap becomes obvious. The number is invisible. The change in how people treat you is not. Someone asks your opinion on a purchase they're considering when a year ago they wouldn't have thought to ask. A relative brings up financial advice in your direction, half joking, half serious, testing whether you've become the person who might actually have some. You haven't transformed, you haven't suddenly become an expert, but something in how you carry a conversation about money has shifted, and people, whether they realize it consciously or not, respond to that shift immediately. It's flattering at first, then it becomes something slightly heavier, an expectation you didn't sign up for, attached to a number most people would consider modest. And this is exactly where the real test begins. Because what you do with that new perception, whether you let it become a finish line or a starting point, determines almost everything that happens from here. That test splits people into two groups, and the difference between them has nothing to do with income. The first path looks like relief. $10,000 finally sitting in the account feels like proof that the hard part is over. The tight budgeting eases up. The new watch or the slightly nicer car doesn't feel reckless anymore. It feels earned. Dinners out become more frequent. The savings transfer that used to happen automatically every payday quietly gets skipped just this once. Then again, then often enough that once stops meaning anything. None of this feels like a mistake in the moment. It feels like finally getting to exhale. The second path looks almost identical from the outside, but the internal decision is completely different. The same $10,000 sits there, but instead of being read as a finish line, it gets read as a base camp. The habits that built it, the automatic transfers, the pause before non-essential purchases, the discomfort of watching a number grow slower than patience would like, stay exactly the same. Nothing about the lifestyle shifts. The only thing that's changed is the number quietly climbing in the background. Here's what makes this comparison so revealing. Both people, 1 year later, will have had the same amount of income, the same job, similar expenses, similar circumstances. But one of them will be sitting near the same $10,000, maybe a little more, a little less. The other will be significantly further ahead, not because they earned more, but because they simply didn't stop doing the thing that worked. This is the quiet fork in the road that this milestone creates. It doesn't announce itself. Nobody sits down and consciously decides, I am now going to treat this as permission to relax, or I am now going to treat this as evidence to keep going. It happens through small, almost invisible choices, repeated often enough that they harden into two very different trajectories. The uncomfortable truth is that the finish line path feels better in the short term. It feels like reward, like arrival, like something has finally been earned. The base camp path feels harder because nothing about it changes. The same restraint, the same patience, the same lack of visible payoff for a while longer. But one of these paths leads somewhere. The other leads back to the beginning, just with a temporarily nicer few months along the way. And the story of what happens when someone actually chooses the second path isn't hypothetical. There's a story that gets told often in personal finance circles because it captures this exact idea better than almost any other example. It's the story of Ronald Read, a gas station attendant and janitor from Vermont, who lived modestly his entire life. No inheritance, no high salary, no dramatic windfall. What he did have was a habit. He set aside small amounts consistently, invested in shares of well-known stable companies, and simply left them alone for decades. No frantic trading, no chasing trends, just steady contributions and an unusual amount of patience. When he passed away in his early 90s, his estate was valued at roughly $8 million, a number that stunned nearly everyone who knew him, including close family members who had no idea the extent of what he built. Local reports and financial publications covered his story afterward, not because he'd done anything exotic with his money, but because he'd done something almost nobody has the patience to sustain. He just kept going, quietly, for a very long time. The lesson here isn't about the specific companies he chose, and it's not a promise that similar results are guaranteed for anyone who tries this. Markets shift, timelines vary, and outcomes are never identical twice. The lesson is about what actually created that outcome in the first place: an ordinary income paired with an extraordinary amount of consistency. That's the real takeaway hiding inside this story. Ronald Read didn't have some secret most people don't have access to. He had the same tool available to almost anyone reading this right now: time, combined with a habit that didn't waver whether the amount felt significant or not. Which brings this back to that $10,000 threshold. It's easy to look at a modest number and assume it doesn't matter much in the long run. His story suggests the opposite. The number was never really the asset. The habit was. So let's go back to that moment at the very start. The app open, the pause, the quiet math nobody expects to feel significant. Remember the promise. Something shifts here that nobody tells you about. It was never really the $10,000. It was what building that number required of you. The automatic transfer you didn't touch. The purchase you paused on and quietly skipped. The months where the balance barely moved and you kept going anyway, with no proof yet that any of it would matter. That discipline is the actual asset. Not the number sitting in the account, but the version of you capable of producing it consistently, month after month, without needing a reward along the way. And that's exactly why this threshold predicts what happens next. The same person who built $10,000 through quiet consistency is statistically and behaviorally the same person likely to build 100,000. Not because the math changes, because the habit doesn't have to be relearned. It's already there, already proven, already identity rather than effort. Meanwhile, someone who reaches this number through luck, a bonus, or a single windfall without ever building the underlying habit often stalls here. Not because they lack ambition, because the muscle that actually produces sustained wealth, patience under boredom, restraint without immediate payoff, was never built in the first place. This is the real answer to what shifted in that opening moment. It wasn't the balance. It was the quiet realization that the habit had become permanent, whether or not the number kept growing from here. The threshold was never really about $10,000. It was proof that the identity had already changed. So think about where you actually stand right now, relative to that number we spent this whole video unpacking. Maybe you're well past it already, and everything we just walked through feels familiar. The app notifications, the family member testing the waters, the quiet decision about which path to take once you got there. If that's you, this was less a discovery and more a confirmation of something you've already lived through. Maybe you're getting close, watching the balance creep toward 5 figures for the first time. And some of this landed differently, a little more like a preview of what's coming than a memory of what already happened. And maybe you're still early, still building the habit from nothing, still without any proof yet that any of this actually works. If that's where you are, here's the only thing worth remembering from everything we covered. The number was never really the point. The habit was always the actual asset. Ronald Read didn't need a large income. He needed 40 years of not stopping. Wherever you are on this ladder, the same principle applies. The discipline that gets you to 10,000 is the same discipline that gets you to 100,000, and beyond that, to numbers that used to feel abstract and distant. This channel exists to keep mapping thresholds like this one, the quiet moments that change more than they first appear to. If today's video was useful, subscribing means you won't miss the next stop on this ladder, because $10,000 is only the beginning of this story, not the end of it. Before you go, I want to know honestly, how close are you to this number right now? Already past it? Getting there? Just starting to build the habit from scratch? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one, and this series is only getting started.